Trigonometry. Or trig. Trig functions of general angles. Okay. So, have you guys gone over this yet? Sine, cosine, tangent, SOHCAHTOA, all that stuff. You know, adjacent over opposite, opposite over adjacent. How about cosecant, secant, cotangent? Do you have those as well? Okay. Just the reciprocal, right? I think opposite of sine would be, wouldn't that just be negative sine? Opposite.
Yeah, sine.
Okay. Would you consider that opposite?
I would.
Okay. So opposite over hypotenuse. Cosine is? Over hypotenuse. Tangent?
Opposite over adjacent.
Okay. Cosecant. What trig function does that relate to? Sine. Right? Sine. Sometimes you guys see the C, and you want to relate that with cosine. The cosecant is related to the sine. Cosecant of theta is the same thing as hypotenuse over opposite. Right? Because the reciprocal of sine is 1 over sine, right? And if we said that 1 over sine is 1 over opposite over hypotenuse, what do we do with this? Or whole number over a fraction. How can we simplify that? Multiply by the reciprocal. Reciprocal equals 1 times hypotenuse over opposite. Is that what we have right here?
Yeah.
This is how you can figure this out if you get stuck or can't remember. But it's pretty easy just to remember this. They're opposite. Okay? Secant is related to cosine. So if it's the reciprocal, hypotenuse over adjacent. And finally, cotangent is related to adjacent over opposite. It's related to tangent. So if it's 1 over tangent, this is the same thing as 1 over, how can we write tangent in the form of sine and cosine?
1 over opposite.
You guys know that?
No.
What tangent equals? Tangent theta equals sine theta over cosine theta. This is a good one to remember. Okay? Long? Remember this. Sine over cosine. Tangent. Okay?
Theta.
So that means that 1 over tangent is equal to 1 over sine over cosine.
Yeah.
Um,
Bet. Sine over cosine. Theta. Theta. We have something similar here, right? So then we can simplify that by multiplying by that reciprocal, which equals 1 times cosine theta over sine theta, which is just cosine theta over sine theta. It's 1 times anything is anything. 1 times something is that same something, right? But cosine over sine is what's known as 1 over tangent, which is also known as the cotangent. Okay? Cotangent right here. Which is just the reciprocal, opposite over adjacent, adjacent over opposite.
So right now you're just proving to us like how.
Just proving to you how it works. Exactly. Okay? If you ever get stuck, and these are different ways that you guys can use to figure out, oh yeah, that's another way to write cosecant or secant or cotangent. Okay? Really quickly, this is going back to last time. How do I convert radians to degrees? You remember how that?
Pi over 180.
if I have negative 3 pi over 4, is this a degree measurement or a radian measurement? It's a radian, right? It's a radian. So I want to change this to a degree measurement. So don't I have to have radians in the denominator so my radians can cancel out? Right? And how do I measure radians? In pi. So what do I need up here? The 180, right? Because then my pi cancels out, my radian cancels out. And I'm left with just degrees.
Hey, good. Go fast.
Please. But yeah, no, I heard somebody say pi over 180. This is a way to remember this. All right? You need your radians to cancel out. So if your radians need to cancel out, you have to have radians in the denominator. Got that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, similarly, if you started with 180 degrees and you wanted to change this to the radian measure, don't you have to have degrees down here to cancel? So what goes with my degrees? 180 all the time, right? And pi over 1. That's not a very interesting one, but your 180 does cancel out, and the degrees cancel out. What are you left with? Just pi. It isn't 180 degrees, just pi?
Yeah.
Okay? That's just
All of that, so.
There's some vocabulary here. Standard position. Standard position of a triangle. If I'm in quadrant 1, if I say my triangle has point 3, 4, somewhere right there, right? The standard position means that my hypotenuse runs to my origin, and the other length of my triangle runs to the x-axis perpendicularly, so that I have a 90-degree angle. Okay?
That's standard.
That's standard. And my angle of interest is always going to be the angle that's connected to the x-axis. I'm never going to be concerned about this angle up here, and I would never draw my triangle over to the y-axis. It's always down. So if I'm negative 3, 4, I'm up here. Angle of interest. Where did I draw my line to? The x-axis. Okay? And this goes for every quadrant. Angle of interest. Angle of interest. Okay? So standard position, all those triangles are in standard position. And the terminal side of my triangle is wherever my hypotenuse ends. So the terminal side is the hypotenuse side of the triangle, okay? So for a few of the questions it says, it talks about the terminal side. And from there, a theta must lie in quadrant 2, right? Let's draw the terminal side of an angle of our triangle. Where do I draw the third side of my triangle to? To my x-axis, right? And here it gives us a lot of information. It says the sine is 3/5. Well, sine is what on SOHCAHTOA?
Opposite over hypotenuse.
Opposite over hypotenuse. So we know that our opposite length is
3.
positive 3. We know our hypotenuse is 5. Exactly. They also say that cosine of theta is negative 4/5. And what's cosine?
Adjacent over hypotenuse.
Adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, it's good. It's matching up, right? Our hypotenuse is 5. This is 5. So what's this? Negative 4. And for these problems, it's important to keep this sign negative, right? It doesn't really make sense to have a negative distance or a negative length. but when we're working on these problems, don't drop that negative sign, okay? So it wants us now to figure out, I think it wants us to figure out the other,
The exact values.
tangent, cosine, yeah, all these other guys.
So isn't that super easy?
And it's super easy, right?
Plug them in, right?
Just plug them in. So tangent, opposite over adjacent. Well, here's our angle. Opposite is,
3.
adjacent is, so it's negative 3/4. And sine goes. I don't know if you guys have been shown this yet. Cosine is related to x, our x value. Sine is related to our y. Okay? This is also really important. Sloan, what goes with my x value? Cosine or sine?
Cosine with x and then sin with y.
Good thing I had it written up on the board, huh? You're looking at like ducks flying out there or something, huh? I saw you. Sine and cosine. How could you possibly memorize that in less than 5 seconds?
C always goes before s.
C goes before S. That's awesome. That's how I would do it. And X comes before?
Y.
C comes before Y.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Bada bing, bada boom. Alright, so let's do one of these problems from the first section. It says, state whether the value of each function is positive, negative, 0, or undefined. So 17 is the sign of negative 135. Negative 135 degrees. So if I'm traveling negative 135 degrees, guys, which way am I rotating on my unit circle?
To the left.
Clockwise. Clockwise. Okay, I'm just looking for clockwise or counterclockwise. We're going going this way, right? Positive is actually going around. So if we are going negative 135 degrees, have we passed pi, negative pi? No. What happens when I get to this point?
Too far.
Have I gone too far?
No.
No, just kidding, sorry.
Wait, yeah, you have.
Wait, yes, you have.
I think you have.
I'm at negative 90 right now. Negative 45, negative 90. How much more do I have to travel to get to 135? 45 more degrees, right?
Yep.
So I'm right here. This is my line that I'm interested in, correct?
Where you at, like?
So-
7 o'clock, 7:30.
Is the sign of that angle positive or negative? Negative. Why is it negative? It implies negative.
Is that because of how do you know that?
So we went,
How do you know that? That's what I want you guys to be able to
because
tell.
we went clockwise around the
I don't know.
circle, right? We went,
It doesn't matter which way we go. We could have gone clockwise far enough to make this thing positive.
true, but it was a,
The reason why it's negative, sine is related to what? X or Y?
That's the why.
Sine is related to Y. As far as Y goes, am I negative or am I positive?
Negative. You're doubling.
I'm at this point.
Oh, so it's all relating back to quadrants.
So if I draw a perpendicular line over to my Y-axis, is that Y negative or positive?
Negative.
Negative.
It's negative. That's why sine of negative 135 is negative.
so,
If I would have gone sine of negative 270?
how do we know that sign is negative? Just because there's a negative sign?
No. You know that it's negative. Negative 135. We're at this point right here, right?
Yes.
Sine is related to what? X or Y?
Why?
Is my Y negative? Positive. If you drew this point as an ordered pair point, would you make it negative or positive?
Negative.
It'd be negative, right? It'd be a negative X
Because we're,
and it'd be a negative Y, right?
Yep.
So how do you know if you're
So
doing
like,
like
it's all related to quadrants.
It's all related to quadrants.
going to negative 135?
This sign will tell you if you're going
No,
clockwise
I
or
know. I mean, but like,
counterclockwise.
how did you move? Like, do you always start at the same place?
You always start at 0.
Okay.
This is our 0
So
angle.
then if it was like 60, what would you do?
Go positive 60?
Yeah.
and then go positive, let's start positively,
Okay.
and go 60 degrees. These red sections are in 30-degree sections, right? 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180.
So sometimes it'll just be like 60 and you just go to 60.
Yeah, if it was sine of 60, I would go 30, 60, it'd be at this point.
But it would be positive.
Well, is that y value positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive, right? Because if I draw a line over to my
And the
x,
x would be positive.
the x would be positive too. Miller.
I think it'll like be asking questions like what sine 5 pi over 4, and you have to see if it's negative or positive.
Yeah. There's a couple of notes there. So, you guys have this in your notes yet? The unit circle?
Yeah.
Yeah, this would be a good thing to have in your notes. And to have on your note card, taking the test.
When's the test?
I don't know.
Oh, not for a while.
I don't know when the quiz is.
Not for a while. So what if the x was negative and the y was positive?
If the x was negative and the y is positive, what quadrant am I in?
2.
2.
Right.
X is negative, y is positive. I'm up here somewhere, right?
Yes.
Well, this is kind of a special case of that. So sine of negative 270, which way am I rotating? Counterclockwise or clockwise?
Clockwise.
Clockwise. Where do I end up?
Keep going.
Where's negative
It's
180?
positive
That's for
270.
$1.
Right
That's
there.
not- I got it for $1 at Walmart.
You guys see that? I end up at negative 270.
Oh my gosh.
Is my y value positive or negative?
It's positive.
So here's
You have a
positive.
visitor.
Alright. You guys bring me coffee?
Oh,
okay.
I'm
What's up?
sorry. I was just wondering, if I did get a quote for
Oh yeah, he's not here. He'll be back Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is somebody supposed to be bringing this up?
So here we see two different examples. Sine of a negative value that was negative because we didn't rotate far enough. Sine of this negative value actually got us to a positive situation, okay? And they can throw stuff at you like cosine of pi over 4. Well, if we had cosine of pi over 4, Ripson, what's so funny? Tell me, I want to know.
There's no.
I like to laugh.
I'm laughing.
You're making him laugh?
I swear there's no funny joke. If I could make one up off the top of my head, I would, but.
Alright.
Come on,
So
man.
does that mean it's positive?
Sean, pi over 4, am I in degrees or radians?
You're in radians.
I'm in radians. Am I traveling counterclockwise or clockwise?
Counter.
Counter? Final answer?
Yeah.
$1 million on the line.
Alright, I'm gonna say, counterclockwise.
Okay,
Use the light on it.
good buddy. Here it is right here, pi over 4. Pi divided by 4. 180 degrees divided into 4 sections, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. So pi over 4. Is my cosine related to x or y?
X.
X. Is my x positive or negative at this point? So this is
Positive.
positive.